Good morning, everyone. Hi, hello. My name is EJ, and I am back again with another narrated art time-lapse video for us to take a look at and view and review and hopefully learn a thing or two from. So, yeah, I am doing an absolutely completely different setup today. I have never done this before and whatnot. It's an experiment. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to keep this setup. But for now, we're going to play around with it and whatnot. So yeah, you get to see my face for the first time. So this is pretty fun. So anyways, let's get on with the video because there's going to be a lot of things that goes on in this particular video. This particular one that we're taking a look at is a 3D project, and it's very, very special for me. Specifically because it's kind of, this whole project has defined, I'm watching the video right in front of me, just to let you guys know where my attention is. This particular project is very special to me because it has defined what my 3D practice is going to be in the future. So it's going to be very, very interesting how that plays out in the future and whatnot. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but for the first time I kind of know where I want to take my 3D. For the longest time I didn't know where to take my 3D art, right? Because I didn't know what the end product was going to be, and now I've decided that instead of originally I wanted to do like game characters, ready-made game characters that I could sell on 3D stock sites like TurboSquid or Sketchfab, which Sketchfab doesn't really exist anymore. But that was the original intention, was to create game lady characters, and then eventually that ended up turning into something else. I basically just want to do 3D print ready objects, but the different thing is that instead of it just being a sculpt, I want to paint on it. I basically want to paint on the sculpts kind of like the way Alexa made, the artist that does live paintings on people. I basically want to emulate that style on 3D, and it's a convoluted idea, which I will explain in a little bit later on. The most important thing is that I want to talk about the process first, which is typically is what I do in my videos, is talking about the process first, and then I'll review about my feelings and emotions and thoughts and critique on the piece like later on towards the video. So let's concentrate on what's going on in the video right now. In the video right now, I am sculpting a face. First of all, I am doing a study of one of Emily Lundahl's painting. It's called Flower Girl. You can see the reference on the left. That was my reference. Now, originally I wanted to do a study. I wanted to have my 3D sculpt look exactly like Emily Lundahl's girl. But in the end, she did not end up looking like that at all. I deviated a lot simply because this particular project was very, very experimental for me. Again, like I said, I didn't know where I wanted to take my 3D. And so I deviated a lot. This is hands down one of the longest projects I've ever done. It is like 100+ hours. You should have seen that at the very, very beginning when I put my title card in. I had spent 4 years on this, if I'm not wrong. It says that I started this in 2020, but I was almost positive that I started this in 2019, and that this might be like the second attempt or the third attempt or whatnot. But if you look at the very top where it says 2020 continued 2019, okay, so I did start it in 2019. So I always put like year dates on all my file names, just to kind of indicate to me like when I started the project, when I was working on it and whatnot. So you'll always see like a date on it, and it says on the very, very top that I started this project in 2020, or I started this project in 2019, dropped it, and continued it in 2020. So basically this project has been going on since 2019. It's stretched out till basically 2026. Wow, that's a long time. I really thought I finished this in 2024, but I guess I didn't. Wow, that's a long time. 6 years for a project. All because I didn't know what I wanted to do with 3D. Wow, okay. Sorry for the distraction. Let's move on. But yeah, Emily Lundahl is a study. Let's talk about the process again. I got slightly distracted. So how I sculpted this, a lot of people approach sculpting, digital sculpting differently. They typically will, most of them, from what I've seen, will start with just one object and kind of just stretch it out, reshape it with a new brush and whatnot. I took a totally different approach in this one. I separated some pieces out that typically gives me a hard time. So most of the pieces that gives me a hard time, or really just the one particular piece that typically gives me a hard time with digital sculpting, are the eyes. I don't know what it is about this area right here, the eyelids and this lower part right here, but this is always hard for me to sculpt. Like in this area right here, like having this deep enough was always hard for me to sculpt. It always felt like when I tried to bulge out the eyes, this all just kind of just sticks out. And you could actually kind of see this in the model right now. If I put this on side view, you actually see her eyes sticking out a little more than it should be. You can kind of notice it when it moved to the side. Eventually, I edited all of this to have it more sunk in. But that's always this area right here. It was always just so hard for me to sculpt. And so that's the reason why I sculpted them in pieces, right? And then eventually I was going to have them combined. And so that's what I did with the face. The nose was separate, the eyes was separate, the ears were separate because the ears are very complicated, but it's actually very easy for me to sculpt the ears. I love sculpting the ears. It's just, with all the details on there, it's best to just separate it for me and then just have it be Boolean combined or Boolean joined with the rest of the piece. And then after I did the face and the bust, the head bust, I basically had like a bunch of base polygons to kind of indicate parts of the body. So you can see me working on the arms right now. I just got done semi-sculpting the torso, and then I'll do the rest of the body and whatnot. They're all in separate pieces again. Right now, the girl is in a T-pose because originally I was planning on her to be a game-ready character. That was my original intention until I decided to switch over and just have her be like a digital print or like a print-ready object, right? So right now they're on separate pieces in an A pose slash, this isn't really an A pose, this is kind of just like a standard standing pose. Eventually you will see me post the character because that's when I have basically decided, you know what, I'm just going to focus on 3D print ready objects and whatnot, have that as like my final product and whatnot. And so yeah, I basically have it post. I got ahead of my narration. I'm still in the T-pose. I moved the character in the T-pose and I'm showing you guys how I'm sculpting the blouse. Why am I having a hard time pronouncing that? Her top right now is what I'm sculpting. After this particular scene, I'm going to show you how I posted. I ended up rigging the character, which I didn't remember that I rigged the character. Again, this project spanned like 6 years, so I had forgotten that I had actually rigged the separate pieces together, posed them, and then after I rigged them and post them, I obviously, made the object static so I could continuously sculpt on them, which is what you'll see eventually. And then after I have all my individual pieces sculpted, ready to go, I combine them and join them. And so I obviously have this one fully sculpted mesh, and that's one manifold object. It's a pain in the butt to have a one manifold object. But I decided to go ahead and do that instead of having them in separate pieces. I'm going to explain the reason why I have one manifold object later on. But eventually I joined all the pieces into this one sculpted piece, and then I retopologized it. Which honestly, if I was just gonna have it be 3D printed, right, I could have just, dispensed with the whole retopology. And again, I'll explain that later. But the reason why I retopologized is because, well, I guess I'm gonna explain now quickly, is because I wanted to paint on it with regular hand textures. I'm gonna go into details about that later on. But I retopologized. And that was a very, very long process. I love that process though. It's just long and tedious. After retopology, I did my UV unwrapping, and then after my UV unwrapping, I did your regular hand-painted textures, generic, ambient, occlusion type hand-painted painting. Then I rendered it and then baked lighting onto a texture that I eventually ended up putting on Krita, smudge it around to get this very painterly look on that final render, right? And then put it back in Blender to paint over it. Very confusing explanation. I'll go more about that later on, and whatnot. But here you can see me post the character with the rigging. I had completely forgotten about this until I was editing the videos, and I was just like, oh yeah, I did this. So yeah, I'm not very good at rigging. Rigging has always given me nightmares. So I'm like, I didn't want to rig. I was gonna just try to individually push all the individual pieces into its final format, but eventually I gave in and did the rigging. So yeah, but anyways, and then here I am continuing to sculpt the individual pieces, putting the details out. Again, I'm working on her top, her corset. This was really fun. And then eventually I will have all the individual pieces fully sculpted out, eventually join them. And again, like I mentioned, I retopologized, got myself a nice clean mesh that I could UV unwrap, and then I painted over it. So yeah, I'm gonna watch the process for now. I'm gonna tune out for a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back later on and talk some more about this process and why I went through this very, very lengthy process with this particular project. So yeah, just enjoy the show for now. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and start narrating again right around this part. This part is where I started UV unwrapping my piece. By the time that I started doing this, Blender came up with an update that made UV unwrapping organic creatures really fun and really easy. I forgot what that option was, but it was really fun unwrapping this. And it was pretty easy. It was probably like one of the quicker process that I did out of all this whole entire process and whatnot. And I didn't really need my UV textures to be perfect on this one, simply because, you know, it wasn't going to be animated. It's a post character. It's going to be static. It didn't need to move, so I didn't need it to be perfect and whatnot. So yeah. But after this is the hand painting part, the part that I was trying to get to, the part that I just absolutely love and absolutely adore, because it was so much fun doing, right? Now, the reason why I went through retopology and getting this one manifold mesh right out of all those separate pieces and whatnot is because of the amount of pixels to play around with. A lot of people, when they do sculpts, right, and they do digital sculpts and they render digital sculpts, they just do vertex painting, which, you know, in the process of doing this project, I did like maybe 5 3D projects in between working on this project. And then, of course, all my 2D shenanigans, all my 2D artwork and whatnot. So I was doing quite a lot of projects, obviously, while I was working on this piece. Those digital 3D projects that I did in between me working on this, almost all of them were vertex painting. Actually, all of them were vertex painted. And that's what people do. You know, you'll see on YouTube, you know, they'll do a sculpt, they'll do their vertex painting, and then they'll just render it and call it a day and whatnot. Now, I could have done it that way. The problem with vertex painting is that you need quite a lot of not pixels, but you need density on your mesh, right? A 1 million poly mesh, that basically translates to only about like 4 million vertices for you to play around with. Because that vertex painting is obviously, you know, a paint information on one of the vertex of a polygon, right? So if a polygon has 4 polygons, right, a 1 million poly mesh will have somewhere around the ballpark of 3 million to 4 million vertices to play around with. That's not a whole lot, right? That's not a whole lot of information versus, like, say, a 4K texture, right? If you have a 4K texture that you're playing around with, that yields about 16 million pixels for you to put color information in. So that's like 3-4 million versus like a 16 million. You know, obviously having UV textures is a lot more effective in having information density. And so that's the reason why I went through this whole process of retopologizing my sculpt, right? Just so that I could paint on it. It was a long, tedious process. Don't get me wrong, I've actually fallen in love with retopology right now. I actually kind of love the zen moment of it. So like out of like this whole process, right? I love digital sculpting. That's pretty zen for me. Of course, all the technical parts I don't like rigging and moving things around and whatnot. That's tedious. Retopology, once you get going, can actually be zen, where you could just flow and not think too much about it. You'll run into technical problems a lot with retopology, so there's quite a lot of issues that comes with retopology. My Blender crashed actually like 4 times in the video. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but it crashed like 4 times while doing retopology. It was not fun. But there's moments where retopology can be very zen. And then, of course, the part that's super zen for me is the painting part, because I'm a 2D artist more than anything else and whatnot. So painting on this 3D mesh is absolutely fun. Like, it's absolutely awesome. It's absolutely zen, right? Because I have this one big canvas that I could rotate around and just paint. And so you're watching me do my thing right now, right? Again, like I mentioned, you know, after I got everything set up with topology and UV wrap and whatnot, like I mentioned, I did one round of texture painting where I just did ambient lighting conditions, you know, your generic hand painted character that you would put on a game, right? When you do hand painted textures for a game, you pretty much do like a generic lighting information. It's typically just ambient occlusion, shadowing, you know, not a whole lot of shading, generic lighting that comes from the top, you know. So that's what I did. Very, very simple, very, very quick, very, very fast. Then again, like I mentioned, I baked in the lighting onto a final texture, and then in that final texture, I messed things around with it in Krita, just to kind of give it that painterly look. And then, of course, I started smoothing things out back in Blender, which is what we're watching right now, is me smoothing out all the roughness. See the left cheek, her left cheek right now is looking rough versus the one in her right cheek where everything looks smooth, right? The roughness was done on Krita. Like, I did that on Krita, messed it around on Krita just to give it that painterly vibe. And then, of course, I'm slowly smoothing things out, making it look more painterly. So it's a long, tedious process, quite honestly, because like I said, I could have gotten this look, you know, just by simply doing a generic ambient light textures and then just rendering it and then calling it a day. But I love the painting part. I love the painting part. This part right here is my zen moment, so whatnot. So yeah, it was just absolutely fun to do. I have actually sped up this process now. I started a project which has a very similar process as this one, and that one is started early on this year, and I'm already at the retopology part. Versus with this one, it started in 2019, and we didn't get to the retopology part until 2024 or something to that effect. Simply because I just did not know what I wanted to do with this project. I was just so indecisive with this project, so I kept going back and forth, experimenting a lot, doing a lot of things. If you look at all the videos that I have in this one, there's a lot of experimentation going on. But now that I've finally got my groove of what I want to take and where I want to take my 3D, this is exciting for me. So yeah. But anyways, this piece is almost done. This time lapse is almost ready. Her face is getting really nice and clean. I really wanted to concentrate on the face because it's such a focal point. But that's it. That's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching it with me. I hope you guys learned a thing or two from it. I will see you guys on the next video. Good night.